Hey guys, I'm just gonna get Ashley in. All right, I've invited Ashley. Hey Jess. Hello everyone. Just waiting for Ash to join. Hey.
Hi.
You made it.
Hi.
Yeah, I just got her to sleep, thank goodness. So we are here today. We're going to jump straight into it because we're both got other things to do as well. Jump straight into talking about health anxiety today. So thank you for those of you who are staying on live. Maybe you got my email reminder. We will be putting it on the feed. So if we go too long, you will be able to watch the rest of it on the feed. So yeah, thank you for being here. I just wanted to give a little intro about what we're going to be covering. We're going to touch on health anxiety in two concepts, I guess. Number one being symptom anxiety. You know, this is the unrelenting anxiety that you get when a new symptom comes or particular symptoms come up for you. It might bring up a past experience or just like anxiety and concerns about what it means. And then we're going to talk about appointment anxiety. So this is more that you'll find day to day. Maybe you have some general anxiety, but it's mostly in preparation for going to an appointment like the dentist, etc. That anxiety really comes up for you, and how we can address that. Both of us are going to share with you one way that we like to kind of work on that. And then we're going to finish up with sharing a little bit of a freebie that you will be able to access that gives you a bit more information, so you don't have to remember everything about what we talk about on this live today. That's all from me. Was that it, Ash? I think we covered it all.
Yeah.
Okay,
Where
cool.
would you like to begin?
So what I would love to talk to you about is I guess the feeling of anxiety in general and how people may experience that health anxiety or that symptom anxiety
Mm,
in their body, and yeah, like how it can be triggered.
Yeah, that's a great question because there's so many aspects that the people who come to us experience when they are, confronted with health anxiety, right? Whether they have experiences in the past of health trauma or going to the doctors and feeling unheard, the anxiety behind that can come up. And so the way that we can approach it can be helping to bring down those feelings of anxiety or that fight flight energy or the freeze energy that comes up when we know we're about to jump or face into the appointments that we know we need to do as adults. Sometimes we have to get things checked and we have to do things that are uncomfortable. And so we can approach it by bringing in, well, my favorite thing when I'm faced with anxiety is bringing in tapping and addressing those thoughts that are coming up that are, kind of creating panic, creating anxiety, also addressing what's coming up in the body. So the feelings of fear, the adrenaline that's pumping, whatever is coming up for you. And so we bring EFT into what our experience is, just to bring more regulation in so that we feel more in control and more power over facing these fears, those things we need to do. And then obviously, also one of my favorite ways of doing this is one-to-one sessions that help us to work through what might have come up in the past.
Um, Yes, we are going to touch on that because the tools that we're going to share with you guys, so Ashley's being tapping and mine being a heart math exercise, these are just designed to get you through the moment. These are not designed to dredge up any trauma or anything that you really need to work on. You really need a one-on-one session or multiple for that. But what I wanted to double back to is asking if you can elaborate on how someone might experience, say, activation or fight flight, how
Mm,
that would feel, versus you touched on freeze, and how that might actually feel in a health setting or a symptom setting. So, say, they get a tummy ache and they're worried they're anxious that there's something bad going on because they know people whose stomach aches have turned into something sinister. And so they get this
mm.
symptom, and some people will get into fight flight and be really activated and anxious, but really under health anxiety you might freeze, and maybe just sharing a bit more about how they can look different.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone's going to experience these things really differently, but there are some signs like we notice when we move into our fight flight. We might notice the heart racing, adrenaline pumping through the body. We might notice ourselves becoming quick to jump down people's throats, very reactive, responsive. There's a lot of ways that we can see those fight flight coming out, right? So we might get on the attack a little bit. We might feel, we might even feel relief from things like, you know, being able to express that by yelling or crying or and so sometimes we can burst a little with our emotions. Whereas when we go into the freeze, we might notice that we feel so overwhelmed by what's going on that we can't think clearly, our thoughts aren't there anymore. We might notice ourselves avoiding. So we might start doom scrolling on our phones or, just doing, we can even experience a little bit of shutdown, right? So feeling a lot of fatigue around that avoidance. And everyone's always going to be a little bit different, but when we can be conscious of our bodies and pay attention to those signs, we also get that kind of notification, that awareness to maybe bring something in to offer support so that we're not going to the unhealthy coping tools. We can move towards things like EFT and the HeartMath breathing exercises to bring more regulation in and then have more access to our brains again.
Yeah. Do you have, I'm kind of dumping this question on you and it might be a bit mean, but say someone has is
Mm.
generally in chronic fight flight,
Mm.
and they've got the health anxiety on top of that, or perhaps some people here are thinking, well, I'm always in freeze. How would I know the difference if I'm going into like more freeze? Do you know? Like, is it about noticing maybe a subtle thing that happens in your body associated with health things rather than, I guess the generalized anxiety and the generalized freeze?
Mhm.
Are there things, if people are stuck in those states, that could jump out at them as a sign that something is going on?
Oh, 100%. So, again, it always looks really different, but there are really common traits. So, for example, if you find it really hard to talk about difficult situations and you might find yourself like kind of barking at people to avoid it or being really quick to anger, you might find that you're spending a lot of time in the fight flight energy. And if that is continuing, you know, if your partner wants to approach something, or your family or friends want to talk about difficult topics, and your response is quite activated, that might be a sign of fight flight. Whereas like freeze, for example, you might notice that you're always putting off to-do lists, and you're always finding ways to procrastinate, and you spend, you know, maybe you checked your amount of time you're spending on screens, and it's quite a lot more time than you think. You might think to yourself, I'm just going to check my phone for a moment. And then it's an hour later and you forgot you're supposed to be cooking dinner. Or so that could be a sign of freeze. And again, there are quite a few that we look at as practitioners. When people come to us, we check a few of those boxes and see what's going on from a holistic sense. But did that answer your question?
Yeah. So like say someone like on a daily basis already doom scrolls and forgets dinner. And then they know they've got an appointment coming up. So because
Mhm.
their baseline is already freeze and they're already doom scrolling and they're already checking out, what we're really
Mhm.
looking for in those situations is probably like, okay, well, not only do they doom scroll, but then they reach for wine to soothe, or they feel extra tired for no reason. Like it's the layering of those symptoms, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and we always in session we unpack, we look for the path of least resistance, what's coming up, what can we work with, because we're always wanting to um, expand the window of tolerance in ways that feel safe to do so. So it might start like bringing in tapping as a smaller exercise, just to work on some of the surface level stuff, and then slowly bringing in the habits that we might need to move through what needs to be expressed. So if we've got lots of fight, flight energy, we've got freeze, they exist for a reason. They're here to protect us for some reason, but that doesn't mean we need them locked on. We don't need them to be chronic and staying on forever. So we might look at um, what how can we support them, where do they need to express, you know, is that fight flight energy here currently because you do have things you need to fight and protect yourself from, or are they long held from past experiences, and so how can we give them space to move and shift?
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And that touches on my next question, which is around um, what to do. Say, for example, you have a health appointment coming up and you've been really worried about particular symptoms, um, and you've been avoiding the appointment because you don't want the result. You don't want it to be bad. So put your head in the sand. Anyway, so you've built yourself up, you've gone through the anxiety of the appointment, everything is fine, you know, like your tests all come back clear or whatever appointment you have. Um, you feel relief, but you still have all of that energy in your system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what is something that people can do quick and easy that they could do straight after an appointment to be like, okay, I've kind of reset my nervous system. I needed to feel that level of activation to feel
Yeah.
safe enough to get through that appointment, right? Like even when we're going through the appointment, it's like my nervous system is supporting me in the best way it knows how. And right now
Mm-hmm.
it's this level of activation, but it's done and I'm reassured. I know that my belly ache, as an example, is not, you know, not something sinister. So now I need to bring that back down and kind of drive some more safety. So how could they expel that energy and come
Yeah.
back down?
So again, I always look at the path of least resistance.
Mm,
I find tapping is such a convenient tool to always have with us. So once we feel comfortable with this tool, that is a great opportunity to spend, 10 or 15 minutes just bringing yourself back down again. And I feel the same way about the heart math exercises, right? We're coming back to co-regulation and being able to notice our body again, notice our breathing again, reminding ourselves that we're safe. And actually, your cards, this is an incredible time to mention the cards because reminding the body that we are safe is so important for us to be able to come back inside the window. We need to feel that safety.
mm,
And I mean, I have so many tools I could share. If you've got a lot of fight flight as well, I would pair it with an exercise that allows you to express the fight flight too. So that could be as simple as going for a quick walk after your consultation.
mm.
Sometimes I put on those really daggy exercise videos and, punch the air and just release that little bit before then doing, maybe some tapping or breathing to come back.
Yeah, I love that. I love layering stuff. And once again, you've read my mind and led me into the next question, which is around layering. So, we'll touch on what tapping is in a second because I saw a question come through. Can you explain tapping? We will touch on the tapping and the heart math that we're talking about. We're not going to do a full tapping class live, but Ash does offer those, which we will also touch on. But the concept of layering things, you don't just have to do one thing and you don't just have to choose one thing and stick to it, right? Because your nervous system is dynamic. So, even in terms of tapping and heart math, I can see them working so beautifully together, tapping to get that
100%.
release and then
Mhm.
anchoring in heart math. Or if you're so activated, then, calming your system down with some heart math, really getting to the true essence of what is triggering you, and then going into tapping to start to release that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And being able to give yourself the space to acknowledge what your experience is. Like, I love diving into tapping because it does give you that self-awareness, self-acceptance, the regulation, and then the ability to hold space to allow the emotion to express really does help her to process. And when you combine that and layer that with a breathing exercise at the end, you've kind of, your emotions might go up a little, but what's really happening is they're not going up a little. You're feeling them, you're allowing them to move. And then you're also giving yourself the space to come back into your window and process, come back to your body, find connection, find safety.
So I love that because often when we feel more, we think we're doing it wrong, but actually we're just allowing ourselves to feel it, and we can't process it unless we're in that safety zone. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, so good. um, let's talk a bit about tapping. So, can you just maybe give us a description of what tapping is, and how it works, and particularly around, say, the needing a statement to go along with it?
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have emotional acupoints around our body in a couple of places, and they are luckily symmetrical down the body. So we can tap on either sides of the body. So it's very accessible, very easy to use. And what we're doing is we're sending little electrical pulses through, and that has actually been shown to help relax the body. So it helps to reduce cortisol levels, reduce the amygdala response. There's a whole bunch of indicators in the body that show more regulation of the nervous system. And so while we're facing something that could be scary or triggering or have a really big emotional charge, we are also bringing to it the feeling that it's okay. We are allowed to feel scared, but also safe. And the regulation kind of makes this really big thing come down back into the window of regulation.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I love it so much.
yeah. And that's just the one part of it. So the other part of it is the self-acceptance. So by being allowed the platform to say that even though we're feeling really yuck and really horrible and all of these different complex human emotions that we're supposed to feel, we're still okay, we're still safe, we're still lovable, we're still allowed to have acceptance for being humans. And so that's
Yeah.
a huge part of it.
So in terms of health anxiety, it's like almost like not an acceptance in terms of like I surrender to this feeling, but like I accept that I'm feeling this way and it's okay to
Mhm.
feel this way.
Yeah.
And I can feel like this and still feel safe in my nervous system. And
Hmm.
even if there are moments I don't feel safe, i.e., when a dentist has a drill over your mouth or whatever
Hmm.
you feel anxious about, that's also okay
Yeah.
because I can come back to safety once it's
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
100%. 100%. And I use tapping and breathing while I'm in health appointments, especially in those circumstances where you're laying or sitting in a chair and things don't always feel safe, right? Like you might be, technically like you've given permission for this thing to happen, but it doesn't mean it feels okay, right? We know logically that we're making the decisions we make because it's for our health, but that doesn't mean that they need to feel okay. Sometimes they feel really scary, sometimes there's horrible noises. And so I will bring EFT into like these sounds are really freaking me out and
Mm.
all these flashing lights and bright lights, like you can bring in all of the aspects of your internal and external experiences just to remind yourself it is okay. I am safe. I'm also allowed to feel like rubbish in this situation and it will pass, but I'm going to hold myself with compassion at this time.
Mm. So good. So I'm just going to touch a bit more on the heart math breathing. So the breathing that I am talking about is called heart focused breathing. It's one of, I guess you would call the foundational breathing exercises of HeartMath. You can look them up, they're amazing. I really love all the science behind HeartMath. And the reason that I love this breathing in particular is because what research has shown is that the vagus nerve fibers between your heart and your brain, that's where like they're the most dense and they're very active. So what your heart's doing and how your heart is feeling has a really big impact on how safe you feel or how threatened you feel. So it's a really quick access point and you can do this exercise like what nobody even notices, like it's something that happens internally. And you can activate that heart focused breathing to stimulate safety in your system. Now, I just want to reinforce because like we said it before, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a sec. I just want to reinforce that it's actually okay if you don't feel safe the whole time. Like Ashley said, it's
Mhm.
okay if you feel yucky when you're in a health appointment or if someone's doing something to your body that feels invasive, because we have an innate response to protect ourselves and our nervous
Mhm.
system is just doing the job that it needs to do to protect us. So it's these tools are not about removing the anxiety, they're not about removing the stress response. They're about allowing it and allowing it to process and coming back to safety after. So what I would suggest in terms of heart focused breathing is that you do that going into your appointment. So you could do that, say, in the waiting room. And you could use a tapping statement if you didn't feel comfortable tapping in the waiting room.
Yeah.
Depends how confident you are. And same if you feel like things are escalating, you can induce some safety into your system during an appointment. I use the example of a dentist holding a drill above your head again, but it doesn't mean that you're automatically going to feel safe. It's just like a soothing tool. It's like a, hey, it's okay, I've got you kind of thing,
Yeah.
rather than like switch off my stress response and I'm all calm. It doesn't matter what the dentist is doing to me. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's really important to clarify that it's not
Yeah.
like a light switch that just turns off. Now,
Yeah.
these two tools, we've actually created a free PDF for you guys, or a document for you guys to have access to, so that you've got it on hand at all times. And I've put some additional information in there as to how I would recommend you use them. We don't want to stay on live too long. And I just want to reinforce that, if you've had a really big health experience, like a shock trauma to your nervous system, and you feel like you're relapsing into that trauma when health issues come up or appointments come up, then it's really important to delve into that trauma one-on-one. So these tools that we're giving you are more, I don't like the word surface level, but they are more surface level in that they're going to support you through health anxiety and health appointments, but they're not going to get to the root of that shock trauma for you. So just to clarify, they're two kind of separate things. Ashley offers both, and so we wanted to talk a little bit about Ashley's group tapping sessions, where she teaches you the foundations of how to do tapping. You go through a bunch of rounds together, and inside this free document that we have created for you guys, Ashley's created 10 statements for tapping around health anxiety specifically. So if you're here going, yeah, I really need some help, even just getting to the doctor or getting my blood drawn, then these statements will support you in getting those things done.
Yeah.
And what was I going? Oh, yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to add in was just my nervous system oil. I'm doing a little plug for my nervous system oil right at the end. So this is something that you can add into any anxiety or nervous system ritual. And unless you're going somewhere where they're working on your neck or the back of your neck, like a chiro, you probably wouldn't want to put an oil on right before you're getting like a big adjustment, or muscle work around your neck, because it will be slippery. But any other kind of appointment, this is something you can add in again as a layer. So you would use the oil, then do your tapping or do your heart focused breathing. And the beauty of the oil is it's that sensory reminder. So that scent will last a few hours. And it means that as you're going through your appointment, you take a deep breath and you can smell the oil that you've massaged onto your vagus nerve. And so that's going to give you that reminder to be like, okay, yes, I do have tools at my disposal. I can do some tapping. I can do some heart focused breathing. I've got the tools to soothe my anxiety right now so I can get through this as calm as possible, but as accepting of your nervous system as possible.
Yeah. And it also works in an amazing way to bring you back to the now. Like, scent is that additional sensory layer. So when we're going into, these situations, we might have our eyes closed because we might feel overwhelmed. We might be hearing things that don't feel so great. But if we can still remain in the body and in the ways that do feel safe, like being able to bring our awareness to what we might be able to smell, then that gives us that opportunity to still connect with the now, but without it being as overwhelming. And mindfulness and being able to be in the present moment will mean that we're not necessarily bottling so much up or so much down. And these coping tools are really about that, like about giving you that opportunity to process your experiences as they're occurring so that you're not holding so much in so tightly.
Yeah, I love that. So thank you for joining me, Ash, today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, guys, if you guys want that freebie, I just need you to comment below. So I'll be putting this on the feed. If you comment below, I will send you a DM with a link to the freebie, and you will have access to both of those tools. And yeah, I would love to hear, well, we would both love to hear how you go with them. You know, if you've been following my stories, I'm on a mission to go through all of my health checks, and I get really anxious about it. So this was inspired by my own personal journey. I am there with you if you have health anxiety.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really excited to share these tools with you. So thank you, everyone.
Oh, thanks, everyone.